Hello and welcome to the John F. Wood Center. My name is Justin, and in this tutorial series, I will be taking you through various pieces of equipment in the MakerSpace and showing you how they work. This video will be explaining how the Cricut machine works. The Cricut is among the most popular pieces of equipment we have at the Wood Center. It is a precise digital cutting and drawing machine that's often used for merchandising and for making custom t-shirts, stickers, and more. The designs are created on the computer and can be cut or drawn into materials such as paper, vinyl, and fabric. We have many materials in the MakerSpace that are free for students to use with the machine, so we will go through some of the most common applications in this video. For the first section of the video, we will be printing and creating stickers using the sticker paper. This is the easiest form of merchandise to create using the machine, so we will use it to demonstrate how the Cricut software generally works. For the second section of the video, we will be using printable vinyl to make a tote bag. It is not recommended to use this method for fabrics like tote bags, as the vinyl itself is quite firm and won't likely stick for long periods of time. However, the printable vinyl works well for items such as laptops, mugs, or cart decals. For the third section of the video, we'll be using heat transfer vinyl to iron on a design to a shirt. Heat transfer vinyl is often associated with fabrics and involves an ironing on process that is supported by the MakerSpace. This type of vinyl is not printable, and designs will need to be simple since each color will need to be ironed on separately. There are many colors to choose from in the MakerSpace to make custom merchandise. For the final section of the video, we'll be using permanent adhesive vinyl to make a custom mug. Like the heat transfer vinyl, this is also a non-printable merchandising option for simpler designs, but rather than applying the vinyl through heat, the vinyl will be applied manually like a sticker. This vinyl option is built to weather harsher conditions than the printable vinyl to make it more suitable for merchandising use like selling mugs. Before we make anything, let's begin with figuring out the basics of how the Cricut design space on the computer works. For this tutorial, we will be using the MakerSpace computer, which comes with the application already installed. However, you are welcome to use your own laptop and download the Cricut Design Space app for free while using our MakerSpace Premium account. When you open the app, you will start on the home page, which has 3 tabs: Discover, Inspire, and My Stuff. Cricut has a large selection of images to discover that are free with the Wood Center license. You can find these designs on the Discover or Inspire tab. The My Stuff tab is the most important, as it will be where student projects will be saved and can be accessed later if needed. For now, we will click on the button that says New Project in the top right corner. Then, we will click on Blank Canvas. The Cricut Design Space interface is quite user-friendly and easy to pick up. We will demonstrate most of the necessary tools before we begin creating. The first thing to note is our canvas. The canvas is where everything you design in your project will be held. You can always switch between the home menu and the canvas you are working on with the top tabs if necessary. The size of the canvas is meant to reflect the green working mats that the machine will cut on later in the tutorial, but we will address the specifics of sizing when we start to create our projects. It is important to choose the right Cricut machine type in the top right corner before you begin your project. In the MakerSpace, we have one original Cricut Maker machine and multiple Cricut Maker 3 machines. The differences between the two machines are negligible, as the steps will be the same, but you will have to choose the right machine before making your final cut. And you can tell the difference between the types of Cricut machines based on their logos and buttons. I will be using the Cricut Maker 3 for this tutorial demonstration. To add an image from the Cricut library, click on the Image tab. Here is where you can search through a large list of images from other users to use. For testing purposes, I will add a dog wearing sunglasses. You can resize and rotate the image manually by clicking on it or by going into the toolbar and typing the exact dimensions you'd like. You can hold Shift while rotating to snap to important directions as well. We will look into what elements make up this image later. To add text, click on the Text tab. This feature is relatively simple. You can click on the text and enter whatever type you'd like. You can change the font style and color in the top toolbar and the letter spacing as well. You can also curve the text. To add a shape, click on the Shapes tab. This feature is also simple and works like text. This tab is helpful if you need exact shapes like circles in your project to make precise cuts. The layering system within Cricut Design Space is important to understand if you're using the software. The app works by having different objects and layers for every element, which you can find on the right side of the program. For example, our corgi is made up of many layers to make the final detailed image. Each color is placed on top of the other depending on how the object looks. For example, the black colored layer with the sunglasses will be placed on top of the beige colored layer with the corgi. And the layering system works from top to bottom to show which element goes first. Because the circle was blocking the view of the whole corgi, I had to move it to the bottom layer in order to put all the other elements in front of it on the canvas. You can use this window to hide any layers you don't want, or use it to help select an element in particular, like changing the color of a certain layer that is hard to grab. Finally, we can use the Upload tab to add our own image. If you click on this tab, you'll be brought to a page where you can see all the previous uploads, including other student projects. Anything that you upload can be accessed again later on if you'd like. Click on Upload Image and choose your image to get started. Choosing an image that is high quality with clear edges for the machine to cut will give you the best results. The first image I chose already had a transparent background, so I didn't need to cut anything out. We will come back to this step later for non-transparent images. For now, click Apply and Continue. Then you will have the option to convert the upload into different forms. Our options are multiple layers, single layer, or flat graphic. Flat graphics are good for anything that needs to be printed, like stickers and printable vinyl, so that we can simply print the graphic. If you only want the image cut onto the vinyl, then you can choose between single layer or multiple layers. For now, we will choose flat graphic. Next, give your image whatever name you'd like and click Upload. After that step, your image is ready to be added to projects and canvases whenever you need it. Now, we will upload an image that is non-transparent. If you'd like to remove the background, then there are sophisticated tools within Cricut Design Space to do so, including an automatic background remover option that works best with images that are higher quality with clearly defined edges. The image that I chose is not high quality, so this method wouldn't work as well for me. For this project, I use the manual tools, which are also quite helpful. If your background is one color, then using the select tool can cut it out altogether with a simple click. You might find that some selections are too strong and it selects a part of your foreground object, or too weak and it doesn't select enough of the background. If that's the case, you can use the color tolerance tool to change how strong the selection is. If the selection tool isn't working or you'd like the cut to be more precise, you can use the erase and restore brush to remove and draw back on parts of the image. While an automatic or manual selection may have been better for my image, I decided to use the erase tool to ensure I got the result I wanted. I then chose flat graphic again, named the image, and then uploaded it to the canvas. Since this tutorial starts with stickers, I need the images printed, which is why I'm choosing flat graphic. But later in the tutorial, I will need to use the multiple layer option for the designs I upload because printing isn't an option. This method of uploading designs will be demonstrated in part 3 when I start working with the heat transfer vinyl. Let's begin with part 1, making stickers using the sticker paper. We'll begin with uploading the images we want to use as a flat graphic. In the MakerSpace, we have standard grip mats that we'll use for all of our projects, so you can take one of these as an in-person guide or marker for how big you want the stickers to be. Once you have your desired size, you can click on the picture and choose Create Sticker on the top toolbar. This will open an intuitive sticker creating tool that we'll use to bring our sticker to life. Click Check It Out to begin. The two options that we are given are die cut and kiss cut. Die cut stickers will be cut all the way through the material so that you'll get individual stickers, whereas a kiss cut will only cut through the sticker part so that you can have a full sheet of stickers to peel off. For this tutorial, I chose the die cut option for all of my stickers. It's good to note that the printable vinyl option in part 2 works as a kiss cut as well if that is your desired effect, but for now we will focus on our stickers. After that, we can choose how big we want the border to be for our sticker. There is a default size option, a thin and thick option, and then a custom sizing option. We can also choose what we want the color of the sticker border to be. Typically, stickers will look nice with the white border and a default size option for the border, but I chose to adjust the sizing slightly for all my stickers to match my preference. The Cut Interior Shapes option is also a self-explanatory tool that will make cuts inside the transparent images if there is enough space. There will be an example of this later in the tutorial. Once you're happy with how the sticker looks, you can press Apply. Since stickers are pretty easy to make, I chose to upload and make a lot of designs so that I had a wide variety printed onto one sheet. It's good to use up a whole sheet of sticker paper if you choose to design stickers so you don't waste paper. Don't worry about the placement of the stickers on the canvas before you print, as they will be automatically adjusted later to fit as much on the sheet as possible once you send it to print and cut. Once you press the Make button in the top right, you can name the project and see how many sheets of stickers it will make, which may help you with figuring out what size you'd like. For example, I only wanted to print one sheet of stickers, but my first sizing draft would have taken 3 sheets to print. So I deleted some of the stickers that I didn't need and made some of the other ones smaller until I had 1 sheet of stickers altogether. You can adjust the size of the stickers in the print menu, but I would highly recommend doing so in the canvas itself so that the size saves and you can access it later or on different computers if need be. No settings will need to be changed in this menu, so you can press continue. Now let's prepare the physical part. In the MakerSpace cabinets, we have a bin called Printable Sticker Paper, and we will grab a sheet from the folder that also says Printable Sticker Paper. We also have printable clear sticker paper if you want the sticker to be transparent. In the Cricut design space, you'll be given a prompt to send the image to the printer. The printer we have access to in the MakerSpace is the Canon G7000 series, which will require a wired connection. On the printer itself, you will want to put the sticker paper in the top tray with the white side up. Once the printer is connected to the computer with the sticker paper inside, you can press print. The next step is to load the printed sheet onto the mat. You should line up the sheet as close to the top and side edges as possible so that the machine cuts more precisely, though the printed corners are designed to calibrate the machine to wherever the paper is, so it shouldn't be too big of a difference. Make sure that the paper is sticking decently on the mat before continuing. Then connect the Cricut machine that you wish to use. There should be labels on the Cricut Maker 3 machines telling you which one is which. You'll have to turn the machine on at this point if you haven't already. Then select Printable Sticker Paper White as the base material. You might need to browse through the material list if you don't see it on your computer already. After that, the cut should be ready to go. The tools on the machine are likely already on the Cricut, so we can move away from the computer for the rest of the process. However, I'd recommend setting the die cutting pressure to more to ensure that the cuts do go all the way through without issue. After that, load the mat into the grooves here and press the loading button, which is under the power button. Once the mat is loaded and ready, press the flashing go button to begin the cutting. It will begin by scanning the corners to calibrate the positioning, and then the cutting should follow afterwards. It is good to be on standby and watch in case anything happens so that you can pause the cut and redo it. The pause button is right next to the go button if anything goes wrong throughout the process. Once the cuts are done, the loading button will flash and you can press it to unload the mat. Then you can pop up the stickers from the paper and you should be left with your finished stickers. Let's move on to part 2, where we will use the printable vinyl to make a tote bag. Since this is another printable sticking option in the MakerSpace, the process is very similar. Within the design space, you can simply upload the image without needing to adjust it or create a sticker. You can move directly into the printing stage now. For this section, we will go back to the printable sticker paper bin from the previous part, but we will instead grab the printable vinyl for our tote bag. You can place the sheet in the same part of the printer and follow the same printing instructions from the previous section, connecting the computer to the printer and selecting Canon G7000 series as the option. Once you have your printed design, you can place it in the top left corner of the mat once again, making sure it sticks nicely to the mat before loading it. On Cricut Design Space, you will want to set the base material to Printable Vinyl White instead, and then set the pressure to more if you desire. Then you can move to the loading process once again by lining up the mat with the grooves and clicking the flashing load button. Once the loading is done, you can begin the cut by pressing go. Once that's done, use the loading button once again to unload the mat, and then take out the whole sheet of vinyl this time to directly apply it to the tote bag. The printable vinyl is applied very similarly to a sticker, but it is more firm and sturdy. We recommend using heat transfer vinyl if you decide to put something on a tote bag or any other type of fabric. We do offer heat transfer printable vinyl in the MakerSpace as well, but the quality usually turns out better if the designs are cut rather than printed, as we will demonstrate in the next section. Let's move on to part 3, using heat transfer vinyl for a shirt. From this point onwards, we will no longer be printing our designs and we'll be cutting directly into the vinyl. That means that we will have to upload images into the design space differently. I will highlight these differences as we move through the tutorial. Let's start with uploading an image. This time we'll have to choose one that is more suitable for cutting without needing to print anything. It is important to keep in mind that each color in your design will have to be ironed on separately to our fabric with the heat transfer process. Also, the selection of color is limited to the vinyl we have in the MakerSpace, though we do have many colors to choose from. That means that the image that we choose for this process will have to be simpler than the ones we chose for our stickers or printable vinyl. For mine, I chose an image with 3 colors so that I will only have to iron on 3 layers onto my shirt. When you convert the upload, you will want to choose either multiple layers or a single layer, depending on how many colors you have. For my design, I chose multiple layers, but I later ended up recreating the circle to my image since it wasn't high quality. As we move into this section of the tutorial, I will highlight more tools that will help in putting together your design. For this section, I used the contour menu to isolate the "we" text from the rest of the gray layer. You can use this section to add or remove contours to your design to get the exact cut that you'd like. Before we move to cutting, it is good to note that the color you choose in the program only matters to differentiate the cuts from each other rather than actually giving you the color you want, since again, students are limited to the color options that we offer in the MakerSpace and nothing will be printed in this section. However, we do have a wide selection of colors to choose from. For my design, I had blue and white circles along with gray text, and I was able to find 3 vinyl sheets with very similar shades to use for my shirt design. You can find these sheets in the heat transfer vinyl bin in the MakerSpace cabinets. When we move to the preparation stage, there are a few important notes to keep in mind for heat transfer vinyl projects in particular. The first is that all of the asymmetrical cuts must be mirrored since the vinyl will be cut on the opposite side to it being ironed on later. This will make more sense once the vinyl is cut and ready to go. The next important thing to note is that you might want to cut down the vinyl you chose according to the sizing in the design space menu to save scrap vinyl and make the later weeding and ironing processes easier. This can be done either before or after the cut is done, but I chose to do it before the cut for this tutorial. I usually note how long and wide the designs are with the mat on the screen, then use the actual mat to mark the guides and make those cuts. Make sure that you have enough vinyl space for your design as well. We will go over the last important note once we've finished setting up the Cricut machine. Connect the computer to the Cricut machine you're using, select heat transfer as your base material, and then choose your desired pressure. Again, I usually set it to more to ensure the cut works, but this is optional. Now, let's move over to the machine. The last important thing to note is the direction of the vinyl before you load the mat. You will need to place the vinyl shiny side down in the top left corner. It is super important that you place the vinyl shiny side down, or else the ironing on step will not work. After that, you can continue as normal by loading up the mats and pressing go when it is ready. If you have multiple colors like I do, the computer will tell you which step is next and which color to load on after each cut. From here, we can move on to the weeding step. Since the cut doesn't go all the way through, we must weed out all the vinyl that we don't want applied to the fabric by removing the negative space. Depending on how complex your design is, this may take some time. As of recording, our weeding tools are in the bright orange cup that are near the Cricut machines. You can use the sharp edges to get under the first layer of vinyl without piercing through the whole sheet. Then lift the tool to peel the vinyl off to start weeding through the vinyl. Once we're done our weeding, we can iron on our design. Here I have the heat press pads and Cricut irons already set up. You can begin heating up the iron while you decide on the placement of your design. Once the iron is heated up, which you can see on the side if the iron light is green and it makes a sound, we can begin ironing on. The vinyl should be shiny side up with the sticky side down, and it should look the same to how it was on the Cricut design space. Once you're ready, you can begin ironing. We recommend going slowly and pressing firmly on the edges so that it transfers smoothly on the fabric. It's better to be cautious of how long you're ironing the vinyl so that it doesn't start to bubble. And it's okay if you don't iron it enough the first time, as you can keep on ironing before you peel the vinyl off. Give it a couple of minutes to cool before peeling off the sheet once it looks ready. When it has cooled down, you can begin peeling off the vinyl. At this point, it should be sticking to your fabric. If there are any edges that are struggling to stick on, you should go back to ironing those edges and then peel once it has cooled again. After you're done ironing on all the layers, you should have your finished shirt. Let's move on to the fourth and final section, using permanent vinyl to make a custom mug. This method is essentially combining the processes of the heat transfer and printable vinyl sections. Since we won't be printing this time as well, we will have to prepare our design in a similar way to the heat transfer vinyl section. But the application of permanent vinyl is far simpler this time. For this section, we'll be grabbing colors from the Adhesive vinyl bin, so the color offerings between this and the previous heat transfer vinyl section will be different. For my design, I decided to do something more complex but with only one color. The tool within Design Space that I'd like to highlight in this section is the Combine tool, as you are able to add or subtract certain shapes on the canvas from other ones to build your desired shape. For example, I wanted the stars on the top to have more space between each other and the wheel on the bottom. So I used the offset tool to create borders and then used the combine tool to subtract the offset star borders from the other stars in the bottom wheel to create one cohesive design. Once you have the design finished, we can move on to the cut. For this process, you do not need to mirror the design. For the base material, choose Premium Vinyl Permanent Glossy. Again, I'll be choosing to apply more pressure to get a good cut. After that, we can move on to the machine. For my design, I chose this flashy gold color. Since this vinyl works as a sticker, it is much easier to figure out which side of the vinyl needs to be cut. Make sure to place the vinyl in the very top left corner, then you can follow the loading steps as usual. This process works the same as a sticker, so feel free to remove the vinyl with the negative space to see your design clearer. After that, the process is as simple as peeling off the sticker and applying it to the mug. If you do have small pieces of the sticker, it's recommended to keep them on the bigger vinyl sheet so that you don't have a difficult time trying to peel it off later. After that, your mug is done and finished. To recap this tutorial demonstration, we created stickers, a custom tote bag with printable vinyl, a custom shirt with heat transfer vinyl, and a custom mug with permanent vinyl, all with the Cricut machine. If you have any questions while using the Cricut or any other pieces of equipment in the MakerSpace, our staff is always happy to help out. Be sure to check out the Wood Center YouTube channel for more tutorials on how to use all of our other equipment.